What is up, you guys? It's the Fallout What If here, and today I'm doing another video. Hopefully, this one will get your guys to like it. I hope. I was supposed to do a video yesterday. I didn't because I kind of passed out after I did that whole game part. But I want you guys to know that I hope that you guys are all doing better than me. It's Saturday today, so hopefully you guys are doing well. So, got myself a bottle of water right here. And today, this is going to be a video of what if Deku was a speedster. Now, as you can see, this is the suit that's Izuku's gonna have. I have a couple of ones that, if you guys don't know who this man is, his name is Godspeed. Now, I remember his name. I remembered who he was. He was actually, if you don't know about Godspeed, I'll give you a little summary of him. He was once a detective that was working on a case, but since he was working on these chemicals, they were the same chemicals that basically shot Barry in like the CW Flash. Godspeed was that. He had those chemicals right there for as evidence, but because of that storm that hit Barry that day, he technically destroyed the evidence that was there. So yeah, after that he kind of, I forgot what happened due to the fact that I'm not 100% understanding on who Godspeed is. But it's not about Godspeed, it's actually just about Deku. Now we start off on how Deku became who he was. As a young man, at the age of 4, Izuku Midoriya did have a quirk, and it was a speed quirk. But this quirk actually was similar to Tenya Iida's. He had a quirk where basically there was holes coming out of his legs, even at his feet. Some on his arms and a couple on his back. But they weren't engines; they were actually holes. And what actually gave Izuku the ability to run fast was the fact that he has a speed quirk, but it's also mixed in with an air quirk, where basically air just shoots out of his body, causing him to actually go even faster. With a little bit of practice and Izuku's smarts, he was actually able to understand how to use it properly. But with this, Izuku never gotten actually bullied, the same way he was in canon. See, Bakugo actually respected him, and actually thought, even though I don't like the fact that, this quirk is, not as flashy as mine, it's fast, so it can be useful to me. And with this, Izuku actually trained his quirk a lot. Well, the reason why that is because Izuku developed a sense of wonderment. When Bakugo tells him to go get something, Izuku was actually the first one out to actually go get it. And Izuku wanted to always be a hero with Bakugo. So when these two were little, they got into a couple of fights with other people. Izuku was actually pretty good at what he did. He learned how to kick and actually how to punch. But the thing was, Izuku wasn't as strong as Bakugo. He was fast, but he wasn't strong. So Izuku was always wondering, how does Bakugo get so good at fighting? And Bakugo just tells him that he was basically born with the power. And in retrospect, it was just because of the fact that his quirk gave him the ability to blast people, causing people to either be discombobulated or also just, hurt. To where Bakugo would just beat him up with his strength. So Izuku always admired that about him. And as a couple of years go by, Izuku was, pretty much attuned with his quirk. At the age of 8, he was wandering around the school and was actually one of the few kids that could use his quirk on the slide. You see, Izuku was always was actually a helper with teachers, and he would be the one that would just go around. But Bakugo didn't like this due to the fact that he was always kind to Izuku, but he would tell Bakugo to not do anything bad, which kind of opted to make Bakugo call him a teacher's pet. Izuku says he doesn't mean to be a good person. It's just there in general. He just wants to actually help. Bakugo gets annoyed, but tells him that, yeah, Izuku, it's of course okay, but at the same time, you have to understand, when I become the number one hero, things will change. People will start respecting me. And Izuku tells him that it's okay, that he's actually proud of the fact that his friend is Bakugo. It's more of a power and one has speed, so when these two help out each other, it kind of makes a good tag team. But one day, Izuku gets to his house and is wandering around, asking his mom where's his dad. She says that he isn't gonna be there, and Izuku's kind of sad about this. He's actually Inko married Hisashi, but Hisashi was actually he was actually working with the Shield Foundation. And in the Shield Foundation, he worked with tech and he worked with machines and stuff. He worked with machines and also on this new invention that would actually, enhance a quirk. Did the quirk enhancement thing. Well, with that being said, Izuku was kind of sad, but he understood that that his father has a lot of work to do. And people need him to, people need him so that way he can make better inventions for heroes. The heroes actually were, astounded with the fact that Shield, David Shield had like somebody who was as smart as him who can actually make this device, which was technically intended for All Might, so that way in the future he could basically use it. He uses quirks without any, backlash or what is the word? He can use his quirk 100% better than it would be in canon. Due to the fact that I believe that he's 8 right now, turned 8. Yeah, I think that's when when All Might became, plunged with in his side. Which, if it was from All For One. Yeah, it was from All For One. It wasn't the chainsaw guy. But anyway, Izuku is not happy about this, but like I said before, he understands. And with this, he actually gets a call from Bakugo, which it was actually Auntie Mitsuki. Now, Izuku decides to run over there because Mitsuki had a long day at work, and she called him because Bakugo was, trying to wish him a happy birthday, and she was also trying to wish him a happy birthday as well. Now, with this, Izuku goes outside and tells his mom that he's actually gonna go to, Bakugo's house, and she says, okay. Because of the fact that he's very fast, he'll be able to get there in no time. So with this, Izuku he gets to running, and it's not far. It's around like 10 minutes their place, but with Izuku's quirk, it's half the time, if not even like probably 3 minutes there. His quirk is actually developing pretty quickly. Now, what goes on is that Izuku's starting to run, but then he did meet somebody. This somebody actually was on the ground coughing up blood. And Izuku was like, oh no, what's happening? And he looks to that man and he says, "Mister, are you okay?" And Izuku says, "Are you? Do you need a doctor or somebody?" And he was gonna call out, like, "Does somebody have a phone?" But the man says, "Oh no, don't worry about me. I am all right. I hope you're doing well, young man. What is your name?" And Izuku says, "My name is Izuku Midoriya." And with this, the man says, "Yes, okay. How old are you turning?" And he says, "I'm turning 8. Why?" And the man says, "Oh, nothing." This is when the guy tells him, this wouldn't happen to be your birthday today." And Izuku smiles and says, "Yes, it is. I turned 8 today." And the man with the black suit talks to him and says, "Oh, you're turning 8 today. You're a big boy." And Izuku says, "Yeah," but he says, "Wait, how did you know that?" And this is when the man looks at him and says, "Oh, there's a friend of mine that has talked to you before. But don't worry, you'll probably be seeing him soon enough." And Izuku says, "What do you mean?" The man says, "Oh, nothing at all. But since it's your birthday, I want to give you something as a gift." And this is, well, basically when the man says, "Here, shake my hand." And Izuku, since he's 8, but still curious, he says, "Oh, okay." He grabs the man's hand and basically just starts feeling kind of weak. This is when Izuku is just, starting to stutter and saying, "What are you doing to me?" And the man reveals himself to be All For One, and looks at him and says, "I am sorry, child, but my gift to you will be to never worry about this quirk ever again, seeing as you will not have any need for it anymore." This is when Izuku is saying, "What is he talking about?" The man basically says that, I've actually found out that you had a particularly nice quirk, and I thought to myself, it would be such a shame for you to hold on to this. And sure, I could give you any quirk that you would want, but I wouldn't want to, well, lose anything right now since I have acquired a great many quirks." And Izuku is telling him that, "Don't worry, a hero will save him." And this is when All For One looks at him and says, "Such a kind child. Such a nice child. You really think that? I almost feel too bad. But in this world, almost doesn't cut it." And this is when he grabs basically the quirk and starts just absorbing it. And Izuku's life is just flashing between his eyes as his body's starting to, well, contort. And also, well, it's starting to change a little bit. The holes that were on his elbows, his calves, even on his feet, they basically started to, well, recede and start to basically close the gap entirely. Izuku is just trying his best to, like, stay conscious, but he basically passes out. And with this, Izuku is on the ground with tears coming out of his eyes, just wondering why is this happening to him. And All For One tells him that, heck, if you ever talk to All Might, which is the number one hero, seeing as, you have a shirt with his face on it, if you ever see him, just blame him. He's the reason why you are like this. Now, Izuku just looks at him and says, "What does he mean by that?" And just well, basically just closed his eyes, and he's basically at the hospital. He's actually in a comatose state right now. Somebody found him, which actually happened to be Bakugo, because Bakugo was wondering what is taking Deku so long. He said that he's probably going to go to his place and give him a gift. And this gift was an All Might figurine that he had. Izuku was actually not hated by Bakugo, so he was actually more kinder to him. Even though he saw him as kind of a lackey, Izuku was different from the other ones. He was more useful in Bakugo's eyes. So Izuku looks at, well, he doesn't actually look, he's passed out. Or not passed out, he's in a coma. And Bakugo is just wondering why is he not waking up? Then one of the doctors hasn't checked in his analysis on Izuku's quirk, saying that those holes aren't there anymore and that something must be wrong due to the fact that this weird like what is called his blood has changed. That's what I was trying to say. His blood changed slightly. The DNA that possessed his quirk, that part of the mutation, is gone. And Bakugo hears this due to the fact that Mitsuki was there since, Hisashi wasn't, and tells him that, the doctor tells Inko, which she is trying her best to be, calm about this. She's basically breaking down into tears and telling him what's happened and saying that his body isn't responsive, but we found out that his quirk seems to not be there anymore. Almost as if somebody either changed his DNA or somebody somehow took his quirk. The absence of his quirk kind of proves it. And if you guys are wondering, if you remembered, oh my gosh, I forgot her name. If somebody takes your quirk, your genetics change, similar to how Hawks, he had a quirk, but in the new part of the series, when All For One, spoilers ahead. Man, I kind of fucked it up already. Spoilers ahead. Basically, All For One takes away his quirk, and it basically changes, Hawks' DNA. Since the quirk was kind of combined with it, is no longer there. Now, since he has no wings because he had wings before, quirk is taken away. He doesn't have any wings anymore. Yeah, so he had wings once, and he doesn't have any anymore. Now, either way, what goes on is that Izuku is, now quirkless. Bakugo hears this and says what happened to him. And basically, he yells at the doctor saying, "Can't you fix this?" Give me a second here. Sheesh. Sorry about that. Some random called me. What was I? Oh. So what goes on is Bakugo tries to tell him, what can he do? Is there any way to get his quirk back or to, re-put it in there? The man looks at him and says, "I'm sorry, Izuku. I mean, sorry, young man, but it doesn't seem to work like that." And Bakugo says, "But you have to do something, you're doctors." And Mitsuki, with tears, tells him that he doesn't have a quirk anymore, and I don't think he will ever have a quirk anymore. It seems that it's completely gone. And Bakugo just says that it's bullshit. He's yelling at the doctor saying that doctors are supposed to be like heroes. They're supposed to be the ones that fix things like this. I mean, it's like you can fix people's, you can, fix people's arms, you can fix people's hearts, you can fix people's legs, heads. Why couldn't they fix the quirk? And Mitsuki just holds him and just says that it's alright, Izuku's still Izuku. It's just that he's going to be sleeping for a very long time. And Bakugo is just mad about this, saying that this shouldn't be. And it's kind of crying because it's like this is somebody who actually saw him as a friend. Even though Bakugo was kind of an idiot at times, he wasn't at his prideful state like he was in the series. Because Izuku actually had a quirk, he didn't actually see him as any lower like he would if he was, well, in the anime. Bakugo's kind of crying, saying, when is he going to wake up? And, well, Inko says, we don't know yet. But he'll wake up eventually one day. And Inko was just crying her eyes out, saying that she needs to make a phone call. And with this, she actually calls Hisashi. And actually tells Hisashi the news. And Hisashi is pretty pissed about this, saying, what happened? How could this have gone? And Inko just explains to him that his quirk is gone and he doesn't know why. Which Izuku doesn't know what's going on. So, like, really he can't tell him anything. And Inko is like, Izuku was just lying there on the ground. He had tears in his eyes. And this is when Hisashi's wondering, like, who could have done this to him? Who could have actually done this to Izuku, his son? And Inko just says, if you can come home soon. And Hisashi says, don't worry, I'll be there tomorrow. I'll be there next. I'll be on a plane tomorrow. And this is when Hisashi finds out and sees Izuku for the next day. As Izuku's just in his inner thoughts, he's just wondering what could have, why is this happening to him? And he's just dreaming. A nice dream. He's actually wondering, like, what's going, like, why is he, like, sleeping, if he can ever wake up. But he sees himself as, well, a hero. He's actually dreaming about a place where he is known as the #1 hero. He has a little fancy costume on that has little holes on there for him to, move around and such. He even thinks and looks at, he looks at All Might in his dreams, and All Might is basically telling him that I have seen heroes before, and none are like you, Midoriya. And this is when Izuku says, it's not Midori anymore. It is Velocity. And, well, Izuku is just, like, happy. But since we know this is all a dream, all he can do is just keep dreaming. Now, Hisashi is actually, like, figuring out some stuff because Hisashi's actually taking him out of the hospital and decides to make it an issue to, well, fix this whole fiasco himself. Now, on one hand, Izuku can't do anything, and which is true, but Hisashi can, and Hisashi decides to put all of his knowledge, all of his technology that he's done over the past, and actually just taken him to, well, the SHIELD agency, and told Inko to not come, that they will take care of him. They should worry about the next kid. And with this, Izuku is basically going to be a baby well, he's going to be a big brother. You see, Inko is pregnant. And she is expecting in the next, well, 5 months or so. Due to them having one of their late night fiascos, Inko is still young enough to actually have kids. So, you know, it's still a thing. It's still, you know, they're still like a loving couple. Now, Izuku is... Well, not Izuku. Hisashi is actually telling David that he's going to go check up on Izuku. And Izuku is actually being checked on by robotic doctors that are telling him that the subject is still, you know, in a comatose state, but a little bit of his brainwaves have shown out every so often. Not too much, but there is something that's going on in Izuku's mind. So, all is well. But they said that the doctor says, how's that one project going with you know, David? Due to the fact that this AI is more smarter than the others. Well, due to every other AI is smart in this, you know, in the shield. What is that one place called? That. Oh, give me a second. Alright, sorry about that. It's Island. And in Island, basically, David's shield is helping Hisashi with this little program, not this little program, that little machine that will does, you know, quirk enhancements. And actually asks, well, Hisashi asks David if they can possibly try it out on Izuku. And Hisashi says, not Hisashi, David says, why would we try it on Izuku? And Hisashi basically reveals the whole story on, well, somebody actually taking his quirk. But David kind of knows that there's somebody out there actually taking people's quirks due to there being a little bit of, like, you know, stories on some people's quirks not working anymore and they don't know what goes on. But most of them are adults. And David's saying that there might be a correlation with this, some kind of disease or somebody at play here. With this, Hisashi says, so what are we going to do? Is it alright if I use it? And and David says, okay, that's fair. I mean, that's not fair. That's, we will try it we'll try it like in a week or so. Basically, make all the adjustments, make sure we have some chemicals around, some of the chemicals to enhance the brain waves and such. Basically, doing everything to make sure that the genetic part of the quirk is going to be reactivated. By doing this, by enhancing something, or by just putting in something that wasn't supposed to be there. And what do I mean by that? They're going to basically reboot the quirk, or any quirk that's going to be there, using some samples of, well, there are going to be some samples of, like, people that had speed quirks that they know of. Maybe by putting this there, or by making a pill or something, they could possibly just do that to him. Now, Izuku's set up in a little lab that's close outside. And the reason why is because David decides that if this does work, it will be, you know, something that Izuku would rather see, which would be the outside world. And, well, oh shit, dropped my pen. With this, Hisashi just says anything to get his son to be, you know, to feel better. So they worked on this, well, contraption that will go into Izuku's mind. See whether or not he's fully in control, or is he not in control of his mental state, so that way if he does reboot, you know, and he wakes up, he won't just be all crazy and stuff and such. Whew, sorry about this, guys. I'm like, it's really hot inside my room due to the fact that I don't have a fan on, because I don't want you guys to just be hearing me, hearing the wind all this whole time while I'm speaking. But no, they actually decided to just focus more on his how should I say, on the machines that will just go into his the machine that will just like enhance his awakening. And David says, "What is this for?" So Hisashi just explains, this is going to be his awakening. If we put if we put some prongs on his head, some on his arms and his legs on the same spots that were on him that on the time that he had a quirk, maybe it will activate somehow. David says, "All right, but this is not going to be a good idea." And Hisashi says, "Well, I don't have any choice. I want my kid to be awake, and I want him to live the real world again. I shouldn't have to see my son, see my son on the verge of death." And this is when David just calms him down, saying, "It's going to be all right. We've done things for the people before in this world, and some of them, some of them did work, some of them did fail. But the fact is, now that we have a lot of, what is it called? Research? No, what's the word called? Not research. No, since we have a lot of experience now, this machine should, accelerate it. And instead of calling this the particle accelerator, it's called the quirk accelerator, which will reboot the system, which is technically the first ever thing that's ever. This is going to be the thing that's making a bigger version of that quirk. What is it called? The quirk. That little that headgear that that David had. It's going to be a bigger version of that. And it's going to go all over Izuku's body, so once it shows, it can somehow enhance his, DNA to be such. And believe me, I may be going in a bit of a circle here, but this is my first time in a long time going into this Flash stuff. And hopefully I'm doing it right by explaining it so that way you guys can understand. Because I know some of the sciencey stuff is weird, but bear with me, guys. So, everything's going well. It seems that his brainwaves are actually going because they're turning it on. And once they do that, they see more they see the brainwaves actually being more shown, a little more frequent. But one day, that day, something showed up, and it was a tsunami. Now, I don't know whether or not they have they can know when a tsunami shows, but in this, we'll just say he doesn't. They don't know what's going on. And I'll probably just say that there was some interference that day. So they don't know what was happening. And they find out it wasn't a tsunami. It was a basic tidal wave that basically hit the island, but nothing was going. Nothing wrong was happening. But then they found out a huge storm has erupted. Somehow. Somewhere. Lightning was just shooting out from the sky. And Hisashi says, "Do you see that, David?" And he says, "What, Hisashi?" This is when he looks outside and he sees a bunch of, you know, a bunch of wind and lightning just shooting out from the sky, seeing the clouds become darker. This is when Izuku just, basically shows like Izuku's mind is like showing up every now and then on the what's called on the scanners, and Hisashi's like, "Look, the reading's working," and David's like, "Oh, that's actually wonderful. Well, the storm isn't coming by here anytime soon." But this is when they are basically more mistaken that they ever could be. They're going. This is when like one of the robots says that there is a storm coming by, and this is potentially one of the most huge. This is basically hurricane class to. What is powerful, more powerful than hurricane? A tropical hurricane? Well, basically, one of the most weirdest hurricanes ever. Seeing as there's, little cyclones and some tornadoes shooting about, and basically, lightning shooting out from the sky. David says that we should probably go now. And Hisashi says, "But wait a minute, David, we're close to getting Izuku back in, probably getting back to, the real world." Izuku is still not awake, and David says that there's nothing that we can do right now. This is when David's like, not David, Hisashi's like, "Come on, we could still do this. Don't we have some defenses for stuff like this, right?" And David says, "Yeah, but would you rather risk it?" And Hisashi says, "Look, if something does happen to this place, I could probably bring him back. I can probably bring him back from from his comatose state. You just gotta trust me on this." This is when David is just looking at him saying, do you think that if it was your kid, you wouldn't do the same?" And David says, "Come on, you can't just say that to me. You can't pull that on me, man." And this is when Hisashi says, "Would you?" And David says, "You're right. We might as well finish what we started." This is when David says, hopefully he wakes up before the storm, happens. And Hisashi says, what's gonna happen when it comes here?" And David says, "I don't know. To be honest, this is something we've handled storms like this. We've handled storms that were less threatening than this. It seems more of a man-made thing." "Man-made, you said?" And and this is when David says, "Yeah, this feels unnatural." This is when Hisashi says, "Natural or not, I'm gonna keep going. I'm gonna save my son." David says, "All right, I'm with you 100% on the way." And Hisashi says, "Thank you." This is when David just looks at him and says, "Hey, you've done a lot for me in the past. This is the least that I can do, I guess." And with that, the storm is actually coming by, and Hisashi sees more of the brainwave actually working. Now, Izuku, in his mind, he's still like a hero. He's taking out bad guys and such. But one day, in his mind, not one day, at some point in time, Izuku actually sees this man. The man with the black suit coming up to him and says that, "How are you doing, young man?" And Izuku was like, fearful. because he's wondering that name. I mean, not young man. The thing he just said right now. Why is it scaring me? He looks back. The man with the black suit is telling him, "It seems you decide to play hero. I'm curious. How are you feeling after this whole time? You must be awake by now. Or you might be still in that little state I put you in. I mean, adults can handle it more than a child could. The fact that you held on to consciousness, the fact that you held on to consciousness more than I thought you would, and you stayed like that, I give you some praise. But you're gonna have to face it. You're not really a hero. You know that, right?" And Izuku is basically scared now. This is when the readings show, well, they show something and it's not pretty. They see that his brainwaves have shown, but now his brainwaves are like spiky and out of control, saying that something must be wrong with him. And David says that it's probably nothing. He's probably having some kind of like a scared vision in there, and tells Hisashi just to hurry it up. And this is when Hisashi just starts cranking the dial, saying that maybe this should work, and goes on to 20%. This is when, well, movement on his hand starts to show. And it wakes up, and it looks like he's waking up, but it seems that it's just twitching. This is when Hisashi's just wondering how long is this gonna last? And while this is happening, the storm is actually very close. So much so that the wind itself is pushing the glass forward. Forward? It's pushing the glass, and David could see this. It says, just a little bit more time. Just a little bit more time. He's kind of praying in his head, saying, God, just please give us just enough time. I think we've gotten this. They're playing with different frequencies now, seeing if they could speed up the process by attaching the quark amplifier. Now they turn on the quark accelerator to maximum, saying that with this and with the quark enhancer, maybe, just maybe, it'll work now in their favor. But before that, a storm just shot out and basically flew. And when I mean flew, it flew into the freaking window, causes the two to be pushed back and knocked out. And the storm is close by. It's literally right there on top of them. But the wind starts moving around and actually basically explodes, causing Izuku just to fall, to basically fly onto the ground. And Hisashi just looks up and says, Izuku, I'm sorry. I didn't mean for this to happen. You were supposed to wake up. I thought that if I did this, maybe I could have, I could have given you your quirk back. You could have been alive. To see, you could have been awake to use your quirk again. I'm kind of failing you right now. But I need to get you back. I need to put you into that machine. And this is when basically Izuku is being picked up and being put on that machine again. It's not working 100%, but it's close enough to just put it on 50%. 50% of that energy, the quark accelerator is being attached to Izuku again, and basically trying to trying to use as much energy as possible, but it's not working. Well, what happens is a bolt of lightning. You guys already know what I'm doing with this. A bolt of lightning, not even a bolt itself, a plethora of lightning just shoots out of the sky and actually hits the machine, causing Izuku to be electrocuted. And not only that, it causes, well, Hisashi to fly again, this time hitting his head and knocking out completely. David starts waking up and sees that due to some kind of malfunction, the quirk accelerator is calling out to the lightning itself and just shooting into the machine, causing the machine just to start powering up at full volume. So much so that Izuku is just like being electrocuted, almost like if it's kind of like what is that word? It's kind of like the electric chair at this point, to where Izuku's just shooting. Whereas Izuku is just basically in this state where it's just like, what is it called? Where it's like it looks like he's dying, but what's actually going on is that Izuku is just, well, he's in fear at this second. He's in absolute terror. He's crying due to that one man who basically took his quirk away. He looks at him. He's like not wanting to look at him, and instead of being a hero, at that second, he reverted back to just being that little small kid that's fearful of, well, bad guys. He's scared of what's happening. But this is when a version of not a picture. It shows All Might, or an All Might of his dreams, and actually says that, you know what? I choose you, Izuku Midoriya. And Izuku says, what do you mean by choose me, All Might? And this is when he walks away. And Izuku basically tries to pull his arm, put his hand out, and he's trying to basically run towards him. But he realizes that since All For One did take away his quirk, his head, he's just thinking that he doesn't have a quirk anymore. But this is when lightning just shoots out. Now, I couldn't find anything, but I did find that white lightning is a lightning that's not used too much. There's yellow, there's red, there's green, there's purple. There's a lot of lightnings that I've seen. And I think there was a point in time where Thawne in the CW Flash used it kind of like as a rainbow. But white wasn't used a lot, so I decided to give him the white color of lightning. And basically it just shoots out. And all he just sees is a bunch of lightning coming out. And Izuku is just awakened. And sees that the storm is just gone. But he sees the sky. And Izuku takes his first step. This is when Izuku walks around and sees that there's actually a storm. Due to his mind playing tricks on him, Izuku just starts running. David sees this, seeing that split second, if he can even call it a split second, a second beyond that second, Izuku is just vanished. And this is when basically they see, well, the camera sees that there's lightning just rolling around, just somewhat moving around, just stopping, and then after that just going into different spots. And when the storm passes, Izuku is actually on the outside, near the shrubs. This is actually due to one of the robots basically trying to cut grass and stuff, but spots a human life form. And then just calls David's shield, but David's knocked out. most of the facility's actually good, and Hisashi's awake, and David's awake after a couple of hours. Well, actually, a couple of days have passed due to them being knocked out. But then, a couple of days later, Izuku is actually there as well. Hisashi says so he failed, and David says that he doesn't know whether he saw or not, but he thought he saw Izuku awake. And this is when David just looks at him and says, he looks at David and tells him that that's impossible. I thought he was, still comatose. And, well, this is when David tells him that there was something wrong with Izuku that second. It looked like he just vanished. And Hisashi says, well, I know he has a speed quirk, but I don't think he can vanish out of thin air. Well, Izuku, his heart ratings actually shows that of a normal person that's, awake. And he looks and sees that he's still sleeping. This is when Hisashi gets up out of the bed and starts trying to wake up Izuku, saying, Izuku, if you're awake, you gotta tell me, little buddy. I need you to wake up, man. I want you to become a hero. And Hisashi's starting to cry because he thought, that after all this pain and suffering, out of all the work that they did, he's still not awake. This is when Izuku just opens his eyes and looks at him and says, hey, Dad, how are you doing? Well, Hisashi starts to break down. Says that you're actually awake, my child. And David looks at them and says that, so what happened that day? This is when Izuku just starts to look at them and just smile and says that right now he's still kind of tired. So he'll probably just leave them alone for now. With that, I'm going to leave it off for there. Now, hopefully you guys liked the first part. This is actually going to be the part 0 epilogue or something like that, where it shows that Izuku actually gets the quirk. Now, if you guys did like it, like, comment, and do subscribe to the channel here, people. This has been the Fallout with Fear. Bye.